There's a constitutional right that you have right now that chances are you don't even know about because it's been dormant for 50 years now. But as Ed Murray reports, that may soon change.
This is the year. We need it now.
Oklahomans have been calling for constitutional changes via state questions since the ink dried on the original document in 1907. State historian Dr. Bob Blackburn.
Those framers provided ways to amend it. They said, you know, this is a good start, but it's not the final word. Culture has changed so much, and the Constitution has changed with it over these years.
The first question was defeated in 1908. Fast forward to today, number 802, dealing with Medicaid, awaits an election date, while several more initiatives are in various stages of the process.
The U.S. Constitution, a little over 7,000 words. Our Oklahoma Constitution, over 81,000 words. We have the third longest constitution in the country.
State Senator Joe Newhouse of Broken Arrow believes an update is long overdue.
So the more you enshrine and cement in the Constitution, the harder it is for us to stay flexible and to adapt with our current needs.
But Dr. Blackburn says before you modernize, it's important to understand the framers.
So what we do know is that they were bringing with them a political philosophy that I have summarized as conservative populism. And they're coming in and saying, we don't want centralized government. We want a weak centralized government. We want local control. Also, with that rural attitude, a fear of centralized business control, a hatred of corporations.
They even dictate who can take a railroad free ticket, who can't. And it goes into very great length in those areas. Also, we talked about the specificity and gravity of kerosene. All items that maybe back then were important, today not so much.
Newhouse is the author of a resolution that calls for a constitutional convention. Article 24, Section 2, requires the legislature to allow citizens to decide at least once every 20 years if they want to convene one.
Those framers of the Constitution wanted the people to be able to have a revolution every generation. Is this system still serving us in the best possible way where we get the greatest good for the greatest number of people? That's what government is.
But this mandate has pretty much been ignored. It's happened just twice, in 1926 and the last time in 1970, 50 years ago. Both times, voters overwhelmingly said no thanks to a convention where minor tweaks can become major changes, even total rewrites.
A lot of people are concerned that a revision, a massive revision, or a constitutional convention would in some way eliminate the parts that they like and bring in parts that they don't like.
James Davenport is a professor of political science at Rose State College in Midwest City.
I think there is room for improvement, and I think we shouldn't be afraid of making that improvement, even if we recognize that there are probably pieces of it that we don't want to have wholesale changes to.
For example, Davenport believes the fragmentation of the executive branch could get a look.
The state school superintendent, the labor commissioner, the insurance commissioner, all of these officers are elected directly by the people, and they can have ideas that are very different than what the governors are. It makes it hard for the governor to implement a very comprehensive, uniform policy across their administration.
We want to have a bipartisan kind of working group that can approach this responsibly and reasonably without a lot of fanfare. This isn't about any fringe group of either party trying to get all that they want from this. And that's what this is not about. As long as we maintain certain guidelines and parameters going into it, then I think we can have reasonable expectations and outcomes on the back end.
The measure passed its first two committee tests with unanimous support from both parties.
I think both parties recognize that we should follow the Constitution, right? Even the Democrats who know that it won't serve us, they honor the Constitution.
State Chair of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, Alicia Andrews, is torn over the issue.
The way the legislature is set up right now, it is not balanced. It is nowhere near balanced. And I am afraid that if we were to have one right now with the legislators that we have, with the bills that they're trying to pass, that what would end up wouldn't represent Oklahoma as a whole.
Davenport believes one thing is certain. What's missing today is a sense of ownership of a document that is our biggest example of direct self-government.
even if that convention came out and nothing that it did got ratified, the process of the people having a say in it and demonstrating this is our government and our expression of our ownership over it, I think would have a positive benefit.
Ed Murray, the Oklahoma News Report.
The convention resolution could be considered by the full Senate as early as next week. Oklahoma Gas and Electric has proposed a 5-year, $810 million plan to modernize the state's electrical grid. OG&E says the plan they submitted to the Oklahoma Corporation Commission on Monday would raise residential rates now but save customers money later. Oklahoma's electrical infrastructure was mostly built in the 50s and 60s and is deteriorating. OG&E says the new grid will meet the needs of people relying more on electric cars and solar power, and it will be less vulnerable to cyber attacks. A bill intended to beef up Oklahoma state seatbelt laws winning approval by the Oklahoma Senate this week. Senate Bill 1303 would require passengers 17 years and younger riding in the backseat of a vehicle to wear a seatbelt. Currently, the law only requires someone 8 years or younger to wear the restraint. The measure passed narrowly, 25 to 22. So about 4,000 bills were proposed leading up to this year's legislative session. Now, they've been whittled down to roughly 1,700 as an important deadline came and went this week. ONR's Jason Doyle reports on legislation that will live to see another day.
When cloister bells are heard in the halls of the Oklahoma Capitol, it means lawmakers have a vote on the House or Senate floor.
Chair sees a quorum, the Senate will come to order.
And while that gets a lot of attention, most of the work this week takes place in committee rooms like this.
Chair sees a quorum, committee will come to order.
Over this deadline week, more than 30 committee hearings heard more than 560 bills. In the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, Representative Casey Murdoch was tasked with presenting legislation backed by the governor that would lower the qualifications for both the health commissioner and the commissioner of mental health and substance abuse services.
Last year gave the governor a lot of power to hire and fire agency heads, and I put a lot of trust in him. This is his request bill. This is a governor's request bill, and we are just giving him some leeway.
Murdoch was peppered with questions about why the qualifications needed to be lowered.
What we're doing is broadening the field of who we can look for to fill the position.
Even with some lawmakers raising issues about the measures, Senate Bill 1863, which changes the qualifications for the state health commissioner, passed by an 8-4 vote. Senate Bill 1870, which does the same for the mental health commissioner position, passed 7-5. Another issue considered by the Senate committee, protecting loved ones from abuse and neglect.
Member, Senate Bill 1739 is a bill that updates current law to assure that residents in assisted living facilities and continuing care facilities have the same rights as nursing home residents, especially the right to place video monitoring equipment in their rooms.
It won approval 12-0 and moves on to the Senate floor. Over in the House, a popular bill to reform the rules for virtual charter schools was addressed in the House Common Education Committee.
Members, House Bill 2905 is the Virtual Charter School Transparency and Reform Act. It is supported by the Virtual Charter School Board, the OSDE, OSSBA, COSA, and 2 of our largest virtual charter schools who also had input on the bill.
The bill would change the way students can transfer into a virtual charter school from a traditional public school. The reform measure won unanimous approval, but not all bills move on.
Representative Dunnington, with 6 ayes and 10 nays, I declare your bill to have failed.
House Bill 3871 dealt with remedial courses in college. It didn't pass out of committee, but could be revived in the future.
We had a bill by Representative Dunnington that really generated a lot of great discussion, opened up some minds on his viewpoint. Even though that bill did not pass, I think that is something he will continue to work on and improve upon based upon the questions that were generated in committee.
A common sight during deadline weeks like this, lobbyists and activists locked in conversation with lawmakers, both inside and outside the Capitol.
Give it up for Jack Haywood, everybody.
Just like everybody else, I thought before coming up here, the Capitol is run by corruption and money, and that's what gets everything done. I've been here now for 3 years, and I've got to admit that's not true. This relationship, or this Capitol is run by relationships.
Back inside, another committee with a big workload of bills, the House Judiciary Committee.
On
Let's go get started. We have a lot of bills.
One bill given serious consideration addressed the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people.
House Bill 3345, known as IDA's Law, directs the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation to work in conjunction with tribal entities in the U.S. Attorney General's office, as well as the Department of Justice, to seek all federal funding available to address the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous people.
With no dissent, the committee unanimously passed the legislation onto the House floor. A more contentious issue before the Judiciary Committee: smoking in public places.
We're 48th in the country in terms of health outcomes, and in an interim study I did this year, we found that secondhand smoke's a big cause of that problem.
House Bill 3384 would create the Oklahoma Workplace Clean Air Act. It would effectively ban public smoking in Oklahoma, including in bars and restaurants. However, concerns were raised about businesses like cigar bars, where smoking is expected.
There are not too many bills up here, folks, that you get to work on that you actually can save some lives, and this bill will do that. I'm convinced of that. I'm not after the cigar bars and cigar stores and that type of thing. I'm not out trying to put people out of business.
Despite some pushback by committee members, Wright's bill moved forward by a vote of 12-3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members, thank you very much. Appreciate your patience.
One more step on a long legislative road to becoming Oklahoma law. Jason Doyle, the Oklahoma News Report.
Lawmakers will have 2 weeks now to consider the bills which made it out of committee before the next legislative deadline.